You may remember earlier this week, a 3-week ban was placed on the movement of cattle to try and lock down rampant foot and mouth disease across 6 provinces. Now another blow for our agriculture sector. Namibia and Botswana have banned the import of some of our fruit and vegetables, citing the need to protect their own local industries. I'm joined now by the Executive Director of Agri SA, Christo. Good evening, and thank you so much for your time. So, which fruit and veg, and how much of a dent is this going to make in our export market?
Botswana has banned the imports of tomatoes. That is already in January this year. And they've also now banned other vegetables. And we've seen Namibia also banning the imports or put a prohibition on the imports of beetroot, also carrots and tomatoes and other vegetables. So yes, it has an impact on our industry because we are part of the SACU agreement, in other words, the Southern African Customs Union. And the agreement is that we will maintain open borders and that we will have fair trade between the various countries.
All right. So, you know, so there's an agreement, but it's an open border system. Is there a sense from those countries that South African products are just being dumped and it's destroying their local markets? I mean, do they make a fair point?
I think what is important is that we fully support the development of those agricultural products or the planting of those products in those countries, and we want to give those farmers a fair chance. But you cannot do it on the back of the quality products that we are producing in South Africa. There is a need for quality products from South Africa, especially for the tourist industry and so forth. And I'm not saying that their products is not up to standard, but what we are saying is that we need to maintain open borders. We've seen during lockdown, some countries wanted to protect their own industries and their own crops and their own grain stocks. But that leads to a lot of disruption in the trade systems, and it has an impact on the poorest of the poor at the end of the day. So it's important that we maintain fair trade between the various countries.
So very often exports and imports work on a sort of quid pro quo basis. What intervention would you like to see from our government at this point?
What is important is that we need to respect the agreements between the two countries or the various countries in the SADC region. We've seen a similar situation playing out where the European Union has just unilaterally decided to not allow citrus or to subject the citrus exports into the European Union to very stringent regulations. And that has caused a lot of disruption on our side and even losses thus far. What we've then appealed to is that there is a framework between the EU and the SADC region. There is an agreement between countries such as Botswana, Namibia, Swaziland, Lesotho, and South Africa. Let's respect those agreements. Let us not unilaterally decide to change it. If there needs to be a change, let us sit around the table and come to an agreement.
All right, so obviously that's the first step. Let's talk about this. But if it came to it, would we, and I don't know enough about our agricultural imports, do you think it might be a good move to consider cutting any agricultural imports we get from Namibia and Botswana?
That's the problem. You don't want a situation where it becomes a tit for tat. We've seen the trade war between America and China to what that has led. Rising prices, rising inflation, shortages on the market, and at the end of the day, it's the consumer that suffers as a result of that. That's why our appeal is let us not go that route in terms of tit for tat. It is in nobody's interest, and in particular, the poorest of the poor's interest.
Have you had a response from our Agriculture Ministry yet?
There was an acknowledgement of our letters that we sent to Minister Patel and to the Minister of Agriculture. And hopefully, the important thing is that we need to sit around the table, iron out these issues, because we cannot allow a situation where there's a unilateral, disruption in terms of the trade rules in our region.
At the same time, the news this week that our cattle are being locked down essentially for 3 weeks to try and handle the foot and mouth disease. Agriculture Minister telling this program it is the worst ever outbreak. Red meat producers are saying, look, we've probably got to go this route to get things under control. I think it was Action SA, though, today saying they're really concerned about the impact. Does Agri SA support what the minister is doing in keeping cattle locked down for a few weeks to try and control this disease?
Agri SA is in support of this temporary suspension because we believe that's the right route to go. But we need to be convinced that, the implementation of the regulations is really going to happen. We've seen that these rules and regulations are imposed on the sector with very little policing, with very little proper implementation. Our big concern, obviously, there was an outbreak last year in KZN, there was an outbreak in Limpopo, and the big question that we ask is, why didn't the department act at that stage? Because it could have curbed the further spread. And secondly, why do we still see cattle coming from Botswana into South Africa while there's a suspension on the movement of cattle?
Interesting point you're making there. I've got to ask you about another issue. Vegan products that mimic meat, such as meat-free burgers, fake sausages, fake chicken strips, mushroom biltong. We're now hearing from the SA Food Safety Agency they can actually confiscate those products. Do you agree with them that by using the names of traditional meat products for fake meat products, that they're misrepresenting their products and violating the Agriculture Products Act?
Indeed, we fully support that movement, but it also comes back to what I've said earlier. There needs to be action. We want to see those products, the names being changed, because you cannot say it's meat and it's not meat. Then you're busy with misrepresentation. We have nothing against anyone changing their diets, becoming more vegan orientated. It's their democratic right to do so. But we have a serious problem with manufacturers who produce products and then misrepresented by telling people it's so-called meat or so-called sausages and so forth.
You know, we're known as a big meat-eating country, but I have to ask, are these meat alternatives and vegan products, which are also, as we know, a lot more environmentally friendly than raising cattle, are they starting to eat into the meat market in South Africa in any significant way?
That's a difficult one to answer. We haven't seen a significant impact on the meat industry. Obviously, that remains to be seen. But it's important that we just ensure fair trade and stick to the regulatory framework that managing the brands, and so that we not at the end of the day confuse people.